Hello, and welcome to Solo Chat, the gathering for marketing experts and organizational leaders that want to get to sold out status. I'm Kay, the marketing associate here at Above Promotions. Each month, we will cover tools, innovations, policies, and strategies to help you sell out of products or reach capacity with your booked services. This month's chat will cover New Year, New Market, and New Clients with Ebony Vaz and special guest Joel Sylvain. Ebony is the founder and CEO of Above Promotions and one of the few marketers in the world with an engineering degree and published research focused on human behaviors and statistical data. It's 2023 and it's time to start thinking about the year ahead and the opportunities it holds for your businesses. Before we dive in and introduce our special guest, I want to urge you to stay to the end for valuable upcoming opportunities, so be sure to listen all the way through for the details. As mentioned, we have a special guest this month. Joel Sylvain is a financial advisor for Eagle Strategies, a wholly owned subsidiary of New York Life. He specializes in creating custom insurance and financial solutions to meet the needs of the clients. For today's important conversation, we wanted to ensure we brought in an expert like Joel to share some tips on what business owners should do to prepare for the recession. Hi, Joel. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, Christine. Is that the proper way to pronounce your name?
Yes, yes.
Great, great. Well, it's my pleasure. My name is Joel Sylvain. I am here in 2023, the year of greatness, the year of Michael Jordan, whatever you want to call it. But that's what it is. You know, Michael Jordan's originally was born in Brooklyn, and so am I. So,
No. Thanks so much for popping on and sharing with our audience today. And this is like our first sold out chat for the year. And so right now, everybody has money on the mind. You know, these recession talks are going on, layoffs are happening. And we wanted to make sure that we start off the new year helping the listeners figure out how to maneuver in this new year, new market, new clients. So, with that said, why don't you break down something for us? Tell us what is a recession and what causes it.
great question. So, recession, it seems like a very big word, and it's very scary because the way the media, really, showcases and broadcasts it. But all it's saying is that the trend is basically saying that people are not spending as much and that the economy is not growing. The economy grows when consumption is constantly at a high pace. Consumption meaning, you as a consumer are buying products and services to fit whatever lifestyle that you choose, right? So that's what a recession is. And usually they call a recession after, 2 quarters of stagnant growth or not much growth in consumption. They call that a recession. So I want to dispel the myth of, oh my gosh, I want to be scared because this is a recession. You just got to understand it as, as part of overall buying cycle, right? And therefore, the question there lies is, how do I approach a recession, right? So that was the first question. Your second question, Ebony, was
Yeah. So yeah, we just wanted to talk about like what is a recession and what causes it. But you said like when we're not consumed. I feel like as a country we consume too much. But when we look at it and truly, I mean, I had a chance to attend a session that Goldman Sachs had one of their top economic advisors at, and even he said like the probably should have went ahead and called it by now, but it's when it officially gets called by these big economic people sitting around in a room saying we're in it. So even if they haven't called it yet, what are signs that we are approaching or near or in a recession?
a great question. And I'm going to address what you first said, what causes it, and then we'll talk about the signs. So what causes a recession usually is some form of an event, such as like the pandemic, right? Where we were, in place. And so it was rather difficult to go out and consume as much. The only thing we could consume are technology type products, depending upon what you did for a living. The other thing that will cause a recession is, unemployment. And the reason, and going back to your point with Goldman Sachs and even evaluating a lot of the economic reporters and certified financial analysts, is that they're saying that the reason why they haven't really called a recession is because unemployment numbers have been, relatively low, and the job market has been high. But now we're just seeing that most recently, Microsoft, Google, a lot of the tech companies have started to start laying people off. And so they're predicting that this is going to be a consistent trend from, especially you'll see the peak of it between the second and third quarter of this year. And once
Mm-hmm.
the Fed is the one that actually determines if we're in a recession or not. Once the Fed sees that marker or that metric, then they're going to declare it, and which will also mean that they will more than likely stop the rate hikes. As you can tell right now at the
Yeah.
banks, your savings account rates are increasing, which is a nice thing. However, um, during
Loans.
that time period later on, it's probably going to be different.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's what, so those are the couple of things that will cause a recession. Is usually an event, unemployment. Um, if we don't put a handle on inflation, then that will also cause a recession, because, the purchasing power, if someone's making a certain amount of money and inflation is constantly rising, then eventually, they're going to be like, well, you know what? These eggs are too much money. I don't need to buy eggs anymore,
Oh yeah.
which would be the
I'm there already.
perfect example, right?
I'm
Right.
I'm there already. I don't need eggs. I got egg substitutes. Let me tell you about them. No, just playing. That's a different show.
That's right.
But how long do recessions typically last?
Recessions can last between 6 months, a year. Um, almost 2 years was probably the longest. When it's more than 4 quarters, then they could consider that a depression. So
Mm-hmm.
recession is like a mini depression.
Mm-hmm.
Depression is when it's like no growth whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
as what we faced in 1929.
Yeah. Now you deal with a lot of high net worth individuals, and then you're also got this initiative where you're wanting to work with, the communities of people who have the potential to become high net worth individuals and helping to build like legacy. Now, for a lot of people who are listening now, who are going to be listening to the replay, they might be first generation entrepreneurs, CEOs. They might be people who are really just moving into a place of wealth and are trying to determine like what kind of decisions they should be making to ensure that they can survive during this recession. So, what are some of the financial things that you think that business owners, CEOs, startup founders, what they can be doing to successfully survive the recession, um, or this economic situation we're in? Since we can't call it that, right?
I mean, we can call it whatever we want to. Just because they didn't call it doesn't mean that we can't call it. Because, to your point, as a business owner, you see exactly what's happening. If you notice that your customers are not buying as many products and services because they're concerned, and it's affecting your bottom line, and then when it comes down to your forecasting, when you need to buy the products and services to serve your consumers, you may not buy as much, right? So the biggest thing that I would say, and keep this in mind, this does not constitute as financial advice whatsoever. This is more like, just a casual conversation. But one of the things I share with people is the importance of understanding the economic conditions and saying, you know what, I may not purchase as many products and services right now, but I need to focus on my profit margins, right? So maybe, readjusting that. Also look to offer, additional services. So like say, for instance, if you are in the tech industry and, you provide like software engineering, well, maybe you may want to, offer an ancillary product, which is a hardware product to complement that and make sure you're focusing on solutions, um,
Hmm.
things of that
So,
nature, or even looking to partner up. Go ahead.
yeah, and those are definitely things that as the CEO and looking at the business that CEOs should be doing right now. But from a personal standpoint, if you are like a single member LLC, you are the sole person. From a personal standpoint, are there any moves that you should be looking at as like, hey, I have this business, but at the same time, personally, I need to be thinking about these things to help protect the assets that I have. What are some of the, and again, should have did a we should have did a disclosure at the beginning of this conversation. We're just having a chat. We're not giving out any financial advice. You got to contact them directly for that. But what are some like the personal things that as business owners, as people with these assets that our business should be making?
As like, let's say, for instance, as an individual who owns a business, right?
Hmm.
Solo LLC or a sole proprietor, one of the biggest things that you want to make sure is that you have an adequate reserves and savings as an emergency fund in general, right? You got to protect yourself. You got to insulate yourself. That's number one. Number two, and it's similar to the advice that I was saying a couple minutes ago. You got to work that much harder during the time of the recession, because that might be your time period where you might make the most profits. That is the opportunity where you're meeting more people because they're not moving around as much. And so if you're creating that activity, that will help you out. In terms of evaluating your own overall finances, that's why it's going to be important for you to get with your financial advisor, financial planner, to discuss with them, what are your goals and what do you want to accomplish in this coming year. And depending upon your risk tolerance, they can help you identify, where are the opportunities for you to place your money where there's, not as much risk, or or depending upon your risk tolerance, you may want to take on that risk. But that's on a more individual basis. But those two things I would say are very key in helping you become very solvent, to provide some resolve for you during, recessionary times. Because keep in mind, during a recession, all that also means is that a lot of folks are reducing their prices because they know that people are not buying. So that also provides you a buying opportunity for you to really take advantage of things on sale in general.
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
in terms of large purchases, I would highly discourage it unless you have the the assets to handle that. And I would definitely wait until, let's say, for instance, you're, you know, I would say a couple of months into the recession per se, pay attention, because then you'll be able to buy large items at a discount.
Yeah. And I think we saw that a little bit at the beginning of COVID.
Big time. We definitely saw
Yeah.
that as a perfect example of that during COVID. There's a lot of businesses that had record years 2021, which is the precipice of why, we're heading into this recession, because what happened was they made record profits, and then their employees did not want to come back to work, to the office,
Mm-hmm.
that is. And the employees were also looking for higher wages because they actually realized their value. And that's kind of the other factor that's coming into this recession, and unemployment is probably going to raise second and third quarter, because when employees want a higher wage and employers can't afford to provide that higher wage because their profit margins are shrinking, due to the fact that, you know 2021 was pretty much an anomaly, right? When that cross intersects, they're going to have to do layoffs. So that's what we got to be careful of, from an overall perspective. And it's important to plan and make sure that you have the insulation financially, and that whatever purchases that you make sure that it's necessary, and so that you'll be able to weather the storm.
I agree. So, for us, we've really been focusing on helping companies to make some adjustment to their marketing strategies so they can remain competitive. And it's been a very simple thing of us going back and saying, hey, what are you doing as far as who you're targeting? And so every time we go and we talk to newer or younger companies and younger founders, they're always say like, this, our customer is X, everybody, anyone who can pay me. And so like that's always a red flag for us. And so what we've been trying to do is, even for companies that have been in business for a long time, is get them to refine their marketing target audience. So looking at the fact that you can't just decide you're going to target everyone, and even helping them to limit their buyer personas that they are targeting. So maybe they've had several that they've targeted over the years. And so we've really been taking a look and saying, if your target audience is someone who could be unaffected by, and or you have a solution for someone who is affected by the recession, then you need to be focusing your marketing strategy on that. So we've really been trying to help companies to go ahead and find a way to look at remaining competitive. And the best way that you can do that is to refine your target audience, and making sure that you are not trying to use all of your resources to tackle everyone, but actually focusing in on the ones that will be able to either, one, be unaffected by the recession, and then two, ones that if they are affected, you have the answer and the solution. And so we've been really redirecting our clients to focus on those buyer personas for right now. And then really taking a look at what is happening in the marketplace. So when we look at from a consumer product standpoint, we have what they're calling shrinkflation happening in consumer product goods. So where at one time for $3 you could get 28 ounces of French fries, now for $3 you get 10 ounces of French fries, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, so having a good understanding of what's going on in the supply chain and what's going on with the prices of goods, and how those other items that your customers have to purchase make affect their lives. This is how we've been just updating like the marketing strategies for our clients to make sure that they stay competitive. And then, you know, it's so easy because, like you said, there are some organizations that will do a reduction in price, and that's usually because they have this large supply of items. We see that a lot in CPG, where a brand may have thought that something was going to take off and it didn't, and it slowed down, it didn't go the way they want it to, and so we see a reduction in pricing for things. But at the same time, we know that there are a ton of companies that, let's just use right now, a very heavily saturated market is the beauty industry. You could literally just drown yourself in hair products or in makeup right now. And so, how are you maximizing your visibility to keep things going and the tactics that you're using to help with the sales during the recession? And so, we've been really focusing on trying to help customers see that. And when we look at all of that and we're saying, what are you using for your budget? And how are you actually creating your budget for your marketing campaigns? And how are you utilizing your Salesforce time? We do have to take this stand back, come back and say, all right, so what is your CFO saying? What is your CPA saying? Because those, what we do in marketing, I mean, one, we can't help a customer set pricing without the CFO or the CPA. So as this financial and marketing thing works hand in hand.
Absolutely, because it goes back to, like I was saying, the whole forecasting as
Mm-hmm.
you
You know, so I think we may have lost Joel for a second there. So, but oh, are you back, Joel?
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yes. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. Even though they haven't declared a recession, but you, with your own personal data as a business owner, you have to use that as your forecast. I mean, that's the importance of having a CFO or a virtual CFO or a fractional CFO in conjunction with, if you happen to have a financial planner, is that you use your data to determine, okay, you know what, this is the trend. And so how do we maneuver with that? And it goes back to, like what you're saying, utilizing the resources of your company and saying, okay, you know what, who's our secondary markets, right? Our secondary customers that will enjoy our products or solutions, and leverage that so that it allows you to really be targeted and focused and be the hero for those clients. Because as long as you become a hero to a client, then they're going to be loyal to you, and they already know that they need that product and service because you're
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling a need. And so I think, in my opinion, just being an entrepreneur, even prior to, being a financial planner, is really focusing on, okay, am I providing a need? And is this need a true solution? Once you
Mm-hmm.
identify that, and then you can say, you know what, who's my target market, and then who's the
Mm-hmm.
cousin to my target market, then you can do 100 or 150% focus, and you'll have higher profit margins because these people are going to realize that it's a particular need, right? So let's just use as an example, which I believe is pretty much a recession proof industry, is cybersecurity. If you are
Mm-hmm.
offering those type of services, that's an expertise, and that's a huge vulnerability for all businesses. I mean, but what is your compatibility with certain types of businesses so that they trust you, they believe in you, and they'll say, you know what, I'll pay a premium just to make sure that my business does not get shut down because I need this security, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or any other industry for that matter. You could be a virtual assistant for that matter. As long as you know who's your target market and what they need and know it intimately, then it allows you to get those profit margins. And when you make those profit margins, that's where you need to buffer your reserves. That's where you need to also, you know, focus on what's the next area that you can expand on. Because a lot of
Yeah.
times people are afraid to expand, but when during the recession, when people are pulling back, it allows you time to evaluate what's going on and make sure you hone in on your expertise, and then, you know, put a little bit of an investment of expansion, because when we come out of the recession, now you may have several more offerings which will propel you to, profit highs the following year.
Yeah. So I think we have like one more thing we're going to touch base on, and then Kay will pop in here. So we want to talk about just a final thing. It's a question that I get asked a lot about, and I think we've kind of touched base on it here. But as we get ready to close this out, I will say one cost-effective thing. People ask, should I keep doing my ads? Should I keep doing email blasts? Should I keep doing text, SMS, text messages, and all this stuff? And one of the things I tell people is you need to build your industry partnership relationships up, because referrals will be the most cost-effective way for you to get around this recession. Yes, we deal a lot with marketing tech products here, and we have a lot of different ways that we can help people to find their customers, but you've got to at least invest some time so that you can search for cost-effective marketing tactics. And we really believe that partnering and getting referrals from people who believe in you will be one of the most cost-effective things that you can do during this time. So with that said, thank you so much, Joel. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate, and I feel honored that I'm the first person to speak on the new year, new market, new clients, sold out chats. And I do want to echo what you said. During the last recession in 2008, I was a part of a networking group. And so that's why I say it's so important to align yourself with folks that you can partner up with. So absolutely. And thank you once again. It's my pleasure.
Those are really some great insights, Joel and Ebony. I really learned a lot from those. So, what a session today. We really got to highlight some great solutions for listeners to keep in mind. So, in times of economic uncertainty, we really need to consider the right strategy to avoid big losses during recessions and maximize our sales. The right approach will bring you success and will help you stay ahead of the competition. We were able to cover what is recession and what causes it, how to adjust marketing and business operation strategies to remain competitive and open for business, type of customers you should be targeting to maximize sales, and lastly, the cost effective marketing strategies. We really can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom with us today, Ebony and Joel. We also want to thank those that tuned in. If you joined us late, do not worry. We will have this recording available on our website, abovpromotions.com. And if you'd like to ask us a question for the upcoming chat, please do send us a message. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, you missed a couple of these upcoming opportunities and events. The fourth annual Tampa Cybersecurity Summit is tomorrow at Hilton Tampa Downtown. Just go to cybersecuritysummit.com to register. Also, coming up is Synapse Summit 2023. It is Florida's premier statewide innovation event on February 14th. You can attend virtually or in person. Just go to synapsefl.com/summit 2023 to get your tickets today. So go out and make a ton of connections at these events, just like what we said at the last part with Ebony and Joel. Go and make connections. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter on our website today. Next month, we will discuss how you can build a culture of customer privacy and company security. Stay tuned to our website, abovpromotions.com, for the announcement of the upcoming chat.